You're listening to the Tales of Leadership podcast. This podcast is for leaders at any phase on their leadership journey to become a more purposeful and accountable leader, what I like to call a pal. Join me on our journey together towards transformational leadership. All right, team, welcome back to the Tales of Leadership podcast. I am your host, Josh McMillion, an active duty Army officer and the founder of McMillion Leadership Coaching. And I am on a mission to impact 1 million lives in the next 10 years by sharing transformational stories and skills. And on today's episode, I'm going to be bringing you some transformational skills that you can add to your rucksack or different tools that you can add to your toolkit. And those are going to be the 27 rules of leadership. But before we even start, I want to make sure you know that you already have this resource available to you for free. If you follow me on social media or you go to McMillionLeadershipCoaching.com, you can click the blog and find that in the link tree in my social media feeds. And you can find everything that I'm getting ready to dive into in a blog post and go read at any given time at your convenience. And then as always, make sure you stay at the end and I'll provide you what my final thoughts are on this of what are the 3 key takeaways that I think you should focus on and some questions to reflect on. Let's jump right in. All right, team, let's just jump right in. So through my 16 years of leadership experience, I've learned there are 27 rules of leadership. And as a note, I started this as a blog probably, I would say 8 to 9 months ago. And I was at 21 rules of leadership, and then it grew to 24, and now it's to 27. And I suspect it will continue to grow throughout my leadership journey. Leaders who can leverage these rules will advance on their leadership bridge. However, if a leader fails to practice or adhering to these rules, their progress will halt and momentum will stall. These rules allow you to gain trust, earn respect, and achieve results regardless of where you find yourself on your leadership journey. Purposeful accountable leaders are pals, and you're going to hear that word a lot in this episode. Understand and implement these rules every day while creating their own. And that's the other thing, is that these are my ways that have made me successful in the past 16 years. Be creative and find your own. And also, I would love to hear what they are. Think of these rules as a toolkit to add to your rucksack, different ways for you to be a more effective leader, regardless of whatever position or situation you find yourself in. Maybe one of these will not fit in your current role, but I guarantee you most of these will. And here's a quote. There's no secret formula to success. However, if you implement a rule of leadership in the right environment, you'll increase your ability to succeed. The first is the rule of winning. So pals understand winning is important, but how you win is essential. There are 2 ways a leader can choose to win. One way is sustainable, while the other one erodes your reputation and character. First, the right way is to understand there are no shortcuts. There's no magic pills or perfect plans to create a winning organization. It takes hard work through routine, accountability, and discipline. Remember, if you want to be a rad leader, you got to be routine, accountable, and disciplined. When leaders put in hours, they are humble in victory and grateful in loss. Second, the wrong way of winning is taking shortcuts, thinking you will reap the same rewards without doing the work. When leaders succeed without personal buy-in, it causes them to be arrogant in victory and unappreciative in loss. Purposeful accountable leaders are grateful for defeat because they understand the wisdom gained from experience will only make them better. The next rule is the rule of likership. Purposeful accountable leaders hold the standard in the organization and understand most decisions are unpopular. Regardless of the rank or the position, leaders can fall into traps of making choices for others versus the organization. And first way that they do this is a new leader are significantly more at risk of making this type of mistake. This is due to a lack of leadership intelligence that comes from inexperience. And then second, leaders who start getting results and developing a following can fall into the same trap. When the noise around you becomes noticeable, Do not give into your ego. Instead, stay anchored into your core values that have gotten you this far. Leaders make decisions for the group, not for individuals. Purposeful, accountable leaders understand there will be people on your team that will disagree with your choices, but at the end of the day, they will respect you for making that choice. The next rule is the rule of mindset. Purposeful, accountable leaders understand that they must develop a growth mindset to achieve long-term success. If leaders can create time to think, those thoughts turn into beliefs. Beliefs are powerful because they drive our actions, and actions pave our path or define our legacy. And remember T-ball: thoughts, beliefs, actions, legacy. But it all starts with our mindset and how we view problems. Leaders must not focus on goals, but rather be focused on the growth, be focused on the journey. But what it will always be here is the journey. We're always trying to make ourselves better every single day. Focusing on goals leads to a scarcity mindset from a fear of failure or not having enough. Purposeful, accountable leaders foster a growth mindset that creates abundant thinking, leading to those chosen legacies that we defined. Rule of 100%. Pals understand that it is physically impossible to give above 100%. Every day is an opportunity to show up. If you have a rough day and you decide to quit early, thinking that you can make up that work tomorrow will cause you to fail. If you only give 80% a day and believe that you can give 120% tomorrow, that is how you burn out as a leader. When leaders delay action, those events lead to a negative compounding effect. Each task that was supposed to be performed yesterday now competes with the present job, and you're never going to get ahead. Purposeful, accountable leaders give each day 100%, and they demand the same from everyone on their team. The next rule is the rule of 3 C's. Purposeful, accountable leaders are coachable, they are curious, and they are committed, regardless of the phase of leadership you find yourself in. First, curiosity is vital for leaders to maintain a growth mindset. The moment you believe there is nothing else to learn is the moment you stop growing. Second, leaders remain coachable towards others and the environment. No matter how high you climb, there is someone on your team with a creative solution. You just have to go find it. Your job is to break down barriers and allow your team's creativity to flow. And third, leaders are committed to growth for themselves and their team. Once a leader loses conviction, the organization can sense it, and what was once a priority no longer is. Purposeful, accountable leaders remain coachable, curious, and committed. The next rule is the rule of buy-in. Purposeful, accountable leaders understand that relationships are vital for gaining and maintaining momentum. A leadership position and the authority gained from those titles are temporary. You must quickly move from that title towards people to create personal investment. To create buy-in, leaders develop their reputation by consistently making sound decisions and clearly communicating the direction. When a leader can communicate effectively, it helps to guide others towards the shared vision. People do not follow words alone. Ensure your actions align with your vision. Pals create buy-in from their team by developing a solid reputation, aligning words with actions, and inspiring others to take the journey together. The next rule is the rule of flexibility. Pals train leaders within their organization to a point where they can perform their own job exceptionally well, sometimes even better than the leader themselves. Excuse me, I'm filming this and I have COVID, but hey, we find a way. Regardless of your position or leadership phase, the ultimate goal is to train others to successfully fulfill your role, right? We have to be redundant in our positions because we can't have a single point of failure. Building redundancy within your team allows for synergy and resilience. Life has a way of throwing challenges our way, and at times you may find yourself overstaffed. Overcoming these challenges requires building redundancy within your organization. However, as a confident leader, you must be willing to train others to perform your job, possibly even better than you. And that's okay. It takes confidence and it takes getting rid of your ego. As you progress on your leadership bridge, your influence is going to grow and you're going to face a decision. Embrace a growth mindset rather than a scarcity mindset. If you fear losing what you've worked towards, you may resist training others to perform your job. But pals understand that when the team wins, they win. They fully share their knowledge and secrets actively, creating leaders who can perform their job even better than them. And here's a quote that I developed: flexibility is the key to resilience. It allows us to bend without breaking in the face of life's challenges. The next is the rule of power. Pals give power freely to everyone on their team and achieve results faster. If you are unwilling to share power with others, you create bottlenecks and inefficiencies. Power can come in many forms. For example, leveraging experience, sharing information, or even connections you've formed over time. Leaders also wield power by holding title, which provides positional authority, coercion, or even being able to give awards out to people on your team. These forms of power should never be exerted to control others. As a leader, your job is to share power freely with all. Withholding critical information only builds organizational walls. Purposeful, accountable leaders break down barriers and lead with a sledgehammer mentality. The next rule is the rule of little things. And I remember hearing this from my battalion commander when I was a company executive officer in Brave Company, 4th Battalion, 23rd Infantry Regiment. He was just coming on giving his commanders in brief. And I loved it because he painted this picture, this metaphor of, hey, here's this 10,000 piece puzzle. How are we going to achieve it together as a team? One piece at a time. If we continue to do small things, the little things right, the big things will just naturally fall into place. And pals understand that big things fall into place when an individual or a team gets the little things right. Consistent action leads to extraordinary results. What separates extraordinary from ordinary teams? Extraordinary organizations can focus on the process that creates the outcomes. When you can focus on performing routine action, you will slowly improve each time. However, if you try to take on big goals, it can quickly demoralize you. You're slowly eating away at those large goals and building momentum by performing small routine actions. Eventually, you will achieve a decisive point where enough traction has been gained that success is inevitable. Purposeful, accountable leaders focus on small wins and are willing to put in that extra effort. The next rule is the rule of strengths. Purposeful, accountable leaders understand their strengths and are intentional with their time to improve them. A common error that I've seen in leadership, both in the military and the civilian realm, is spending too much time catered towards your weaknesses. Regardless of the time you devote to something you're naturally not gifted or dislike doing, you will be average at best. Only when individuals achieve elite status and the margin between your competition is razor thin will you benefit from devoting time catering towards your weaknesses. Instead, be intentional and master your strengths while allowing other strengths to cover your flaws. Purposeful, accountable leaders create a culture where it is a standard operating procedure, SOP, to spend time developing your strengths. The next rule is the rule of listening. And this is just one universal fact. If you can listen better as a leader, you will see results. And I see it in 4 different ways, but we'll kind of get into that. PALs tap into transformational listening. And that's the 4th phase, cultivating a coaching culture and fostering a growth mindset. Being able to listen is a vital characteristic in any level of leadership. Still, most leaders never achieve this 4th level of leadership, which is transformational listening. And the 4 levels of listening a leader can use is the first two are selfish and the last two are selfless. The first one is passive listening, which often comes when a leader experiences mental drift. You're talking to me, but I'm not there. I'm staring out the window or I'm thinking something completely different. And number two is transitional listening, of where the leader is only looking for key parts of the conversation that they can benefit from. Remember, the first two are selfish, the last two are selfless. And the third is empathetic listening, allowing the leader to better understand what their team is experiencing by being able to tap into that emotional energy. The fourth level of listening is where a leader connects not only with the emotional state of others, but also the physical. Once you can connect deeply, it allows you to ask powerful questions that challenge assumptions and elicit self-awareness. Purposeful, accountable leaders practice active listening and cultivate a coaching culture. The next rule is the rule of true north. Purposeful, accountable leaders allow their core values to guide your decisions, and that is absolutely critical. Leaders must have an internal compass pointing them to their true north, and your true north is your core values. It's your character, it's your morals, ensuring that every action or decision you make and word that you're using is weighted. Once leaders make decisions outside of their true north or their compass, they erode their reputation. Your reputation is hard to build, but easy to lose. When you are confronted with a challenging decision and reflect back on your true north, the answer will come. Purposeful, accountable leaders allow their choices to be guided by who they are and protect their reputation ruthlessly. The next is the rule of dead space. Pals surround themselves with people who have unique ways of solving problems. Every leader has an Achilles heel, regardless of experience or position. That weakness is themselves. You are the weakness, and it's okay. As a leader, we can only see situations through our lens. When we do, dead space develops, and dead space is an area you cannot see or maneuver in, and it's invisible to us, but it's often visible to someone else. It's essential to surround yourself with individuals that have diverse perspectives different from yours. If we have diversity, it strengthens the organization by harnessing out of the box thinking. Our differences will help prevent dead space from forming around leaders and ultimately create a stronger, more resilient organization. PALs create heterogeneous organizations equipped to handle complex problems. And I have to stop there because I think that's a win. I was able to pronounce that word the first time without doing an edit. So let's all just give me a little clap because I'm pumped about that. So the next rule is the rule of compounding. Purposeful, accountable leaders understand that steady action over time will create extraordinary results. The Sortes paradox states that a piece of sand or grain is added to a collection. At what point does that collection become a heap or a mound? The rule of compounding can work in two ways for a leader. First, leaders can develop routine, accountable, disciplined action. Each action is added to a previous one, and that mountain is formed, and you have momentum. Or, second, leaders can give into temporary discomfort and allow requirements to build upon each other. Eventually, a mountain of work is the result that stymies organizational momentum. So you can gain momentum and stand on a mountaintop of success and victories, or you can allow those additional requirements to creep up and create a mountain of work for you that you're going to get buried and bogged down in. As a leader, you can tap into the rule of compounding and climb to new heights, or you can choose inaction and be smothered by a mountain of responsibilities. Purposeful, accountable leaders are RAD, and I love that acronym. It's probably one of the favorite ones I've ever come up with in their actions, and leverage the rule of compounding to take the organization to the summit. And here's a quote by Darren Hardy. It's not the big things that add up in the end. It's the hundreds, thousands, or millions of little things that separate the ordinary from the extraordinary. All right, team, let's take a quick break from this episode, and I want to share a message from McMillion Leadership Coaching, a company that I founded. So what do? I help leaders discover their purpose, create long-term growth plans, and take inspired action. I believe everything rises and falls on leadership. Regardless of where you are in life, one fact is true. You are a leader of others, your family, and most importantly, yourself. To lead others well starts with you. Stop surviving and start thriving in life. Here's 3 easy steps to get started. Go to McMillionLeadershipCoaching.com and schedule a call today. It's free. You have nothing to lose. Number 2, start the 100-day leadership challenge. And then number 3, simply grow your leadership. We all have greatness inside, but it's up to us to forge those abilities. Become the leader your team needs. Back to the podcast. The next rule is the rule of the tribe. Pals are intentional with those they spend time with. A general rule I follow is called my top 5. Think about the top 5 people you experience most of the day with. From that list, exclude most of your family and even your coworkers. Who are the top 5 people you choose to spend time with? The fastest way to predict anyone's future is to see who they devote their time to. A fact of the human condition is we adapt to the environment around us. Look at your top 5, and I bet you share the same values and beliefs of that tribe. Purposeful accountable leaders surround themselves with individuals that stretch their thinking and their abilities. And it may not be someone physically that you're hanging out with too. I'm going to kind of go off script with this. It may be TV shows. It may be news channels that you're watching. That is still part of the rule of the tribe. If you can't think of 5 people that you spend time with outside of family and coworkers, that's an issue because you're not stretching yourself. Find people who will make you better and stretch you. Find an accountability group. Find a mastermind. Find a group of friends that will push you to be a better version of yourself. The next rule is the rule of candor. Pals encourage open lines of communication, especially constructive criticism. No team will ever become great unless they can challenge ideas and assumptions. However, there is a wrong way to challenge and then a right way to challenge. And first, avoid openly criticizing in public. When a leader criticizes openly in public, it causes the team to build walls. And as a result, innovation and creative thinking grinds to a halt. And second, never openly challenge in public. If you disagree with others' ideas, having healthy debates is okay. It's not okay to make it personal. Never make it personal. I've learned that the hard way. It only will end bad. Purposeful accountable leaders praise innovative thinking publicly, and then they challenge privately while breaking down walls. The next is the rule of failure. Pals understand that failure is essential ingredient in success. Trust me, I'm creating a whole series on how leaders fail. That'll be a whole blog series. And there's different ways of thinking about failure. But here are 2 critical ones that I'll first jump into. And first, you can blame the environment or others for your failure and refuse to change. And when leaders choose this path, they form toxic transitional leadership habits that allow their heart to harden. And our goal, my whole goal, is to not allow your heart to harden as you continue to gain more authority and more influence as a leader. Second, you can view failure as an essential life lesson and become stronger from the experience. When leaders view failure in this light, they develop humility and gratitude. In failure, there are 2 ways to learn. First is wisdom, which comes from failure, trying something new. And then the second is experience. And that also comes from trying something new. And both are vital and both are a side effect of failure. Purposeful accountable leaders view failure as an opportunity to improve and seek mentors to help them work through those experiences. The next rule is the rule of traction. Pals understand without traction, organizations will stall and with it become unstoppable. To create traction, leaders need to inspire through a shared vision while creating buy-in from their team. Once leaders connect authentically and start moving towards the same direction or start rowing towards the same objective, they create small wins. Small wins leverage the rule of compounding and start to build upon each other. And as a result, team members build confidence and the organization gains momentum. Having momentum is critical for sustaining growth because it allows your business to weather obstacles by applying a sledgehammer mindset or a mentality. And we'll get to that in a second. And pals create traction. And as a result, they develop resilient organizations that can endure and succeed in any environment. The next rule is the rule of sowing. This is probably one of the most impactful. Pals invest in their team and allow time for that investment to mature. A universal fact in leadership and life is to receive anything, you must first be willing to give. The rule of sowing centers around two mindsets. First, toxic leaders have a scarcity mindset and cut corners while expecting to receive and take from others. Second, transformational leaders or purposeful accountable leaders have abundant perspectives and they share freely without wanting anything in return. Think of it like planting a crop. Before you can reap a harvest, you must be willing to lay the seed and put in the work. Then that's when the work really starts. You must invest your time and your resources to allow that seed to mature to its full potential. Eventually, that seed will blossom into a towering tree that bears fruit for everyone. A key point that this rule states is to be careful of what you're sowing. Eventually, you will receive in abundance precisely what you put into the ground. Purposeful, accountable leaders relentlessly add value to others, allowing their investment to mature and to grow. The next rule is the rule of mirrors. Pals act as a mirror for their team and their organization. The actions you choose daily, your words, or even how you care for others are watched. How you conduct daily tasks determine how others in your organization perform theirs. What core values and attributes do you want to be replicated in your organization? Leaders are mirrors and reflect what is truly important in their own lives. Ensure your words align with your deeds because someone is always watching you. Leaders' actions create new standards and will be mirrored across the organization. Purposeful, accountable leaders consistently act in alignment and model the way for others. The next rule is the rule of 100%. I got this from James Clear when I was reading his book, Atomic Habits. And if you haven't read that book yet, I highly recommend it because it really helps me. It helped me anyway, frame my mindset around routine action and just being consistent and the power of consistency and the power of habits. Pals do not chase unrealistic goals in life. I've seen a lot of leaders try to chase complex plans and they never see improvement because they're trying to take on those big elephants or those big goals. And as a result, morale plummets and the organization just loses traction. That can be either personally or professionally. If you want to go run a marathon, you're not just going to go run 26 miles. You have to incrementally build up to that to make sure that you're healthy mentally and physically. However, you have to rethink how you chase big goals. To knock down 300-meter targets, you need to make daily improvements. Those improvements will add up when you can improve just 1% across numerous areas. Think of it as an ice cube. At 29 degrees, we see no change. 30, 31, 32, we see no change. At 33 degrees, the ice cube begins to move just a little bit. 34 degrees, it begins to really move, and we see exponential movement. And that's all it takes is just those 1% improvements consistently over a period of time. Eventually, those small improvements you will see resulting in those unrealistic goals becoming into focus. And then we can take down those 300-meter targets. Pals focus on making micro improvements and do not become tunnel vision towards unrealistic goals. Here's a quote: strive for the 1% improvements in your life. It's not about drastic changes, but the accumulation of small, consistent efforts that lead to a remarkable transformation. The next rule is the rule of 3H. Pals understand their team must be actively part of the process to achieve anything. To get your team on board with your vision, you must follow the Triple H rule, which I just love that, especially if you're a wrestling fan. I think you'll get it. First is the head. You must clearly communicate where you're taking your team so they can see it. Being able to visualize the path is the first step. The second is the heart. Leaders must create an emotional connection to the vision. Why is it important to the individual, the team, and to the organization if we succeed? And what does it mean if we fail? Once you have won over your team's hearts and you've created an emotional step, there's only one step left, and that is to enlist their hands. Leaders who allow their team to forge the path alongside them create alignment between head, heart, and hand, or Triple H. Pals understand before they can achieve results, they must first enlist others to help them by showing them the path, explaining the why, and allowing them to help. The next rule is the rule of refraction. Pals are light benders, being able to shift a spotlight from themselves to others. As a leader, you must understand when to be in front and when to take a step back. And that's an art and a science. When a team member or a group achieves milestones and shares in their celebration, do not take credit for their accomplishments. And that's critical. And that takes maturity to understand. Part of leadership is recognition, recognizing excellence, or no one will understand what true excellence then is in a formation if you can't recognize it. You must be able to reward individuals for their efforts, or they will find other people or environments or jobs to work for. Trust me. Next time the light is shined on you, ask yourself, who made it possible? Once you can answer that question, allow them to be in front. Pals take every opportunity to publicly recognize others because they are successful when the team and the organization is successful. The next is the rule of sledgehammer. Pals understand that there are some problems only they can solve. To have a sledgehammer mindset is a delicate balance. Your goal as a leader is not to rescue your team when facing challenges. Instead, your job is to provide guidance and the tools and the authority to overcome those obstacles. And when a leader consistently rescues their team, all they're doing is they're creating an unhealthy dependency. You're becoming the team's accountability net versus holding them accountable. Remember, we give them the authority and we give them the tools and they have the responsibility. But if they can't be responsible and they fail, that is the leader's job to hold them accountable. And the same is true for you. If you fail, you should be held accountable. Not holding others to a standard leads to a mindset that it's acceptable to fail because of just being lazy. Leaders only intervene when the team is stretched beyond their capacity. Remember that. You only intervene when they are stretched beyond their capacity. And at that point, the leader steps in and destroys that obstacle and ensures there's a system in place to prevent it from happening again. Pals know when to step in and to remove the barriers with a sledgehammer mindset. The next one is the rule of fear. And think of fear as an acronym. Fear is a powerful word in leadership. It can prevent you from gaining traction and moving forward. But just like the rule of mindset, you have to understand that fear is a tool for you to use. If we spell it out, fear does not mean finding excuses and reasons not to take action. Fear stands for facing everything and rising. And here's a better one. Fear is failing early and rejoicing. When we take inspired action, it can be scary, but that is good because we genuinely care about what we do when we are scared. Being scared creates cortisol in our bodies. It's a chemical reaction that allows our species to evolve over thousands of years, millennia, however long the human species have lived. That is not my specialty. And overcome obstacles. It is a tool in our toolkit, a chemical tool in our toolkit. Remember that it is important to you the next time if you are scared, and harness that So take the time to mitigate the risk and give 100% of your effort. If you do not, your body will produce cortisol or stress, which over time can kill you. Conquer your fears and your limited beliefs and be decisive and take action. The next rule is tactical patience. Most of the valuable lessons I've learned throughout my leadership journey is the rule of tactical patience. And as a young platoon leader, I acted when the environment stimulated a response. But in a combat zone, that is precisely what the enemy wants you to do. They want you to react to the present situation without thinking and acting purposely. To begin to practice tactical patience in your life, here's an acronym that I call STOP, STOP, that you can use. And the first is to silence your mind. One of the hardest things to do is to block out the noise and focus on the problem. Like, for example, right now, I don't know if you can hear my kids because we now live in a 3-story room. They're underneath me and they're just making crazy amounts of noise and shaking the floor. So if you can't hear them, hey, that's the price of listening to me and being a full-time father. So there's nothing I can do, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But one of the hardest things to do is to block out the noise and to focus on the problem. The second is to take a tactical pause, meaning take a deep breath and allow that information to soak in, and do this. 3 seconds in. Hold it for 3 seconds. 3 seconds out. And hold it for 3 seconds. And then once you've done that, observe your surroundings. Whether you're in a combat environment or you're in a boardroom, your surroundings will give you whispers of the truth. And then finally, pursue with purpose. Most of the time, we are willing to dive headfirst, ultimately leading to countless hours lost and inefficiencies. Effort from your team that's lost and effort from yourself that is just lost. To be a purposeful, accountable leader, you must learn to tap into tactical patience. And the final rule is the rule of fire. And I just recently developed this one from a sermon of Chris Hodges from the Church of Highlands. And I love this one. So what does that mean? There will be more obstacles than you can count in your life. Fire is the ability to take a challenging situation and allow it to purify our hearts. Think of it like this. We use intense heat to purify silver and gold. Elements go through the fire, they enable impurities to bubble up to the top, and those impurities are then removed, which leaves purified silver and gold as a byproduct. The same is true in our lives. You will have trials and tribulations that you have to go through, and sometimes only you have to go through, but you can choose one of two paths. First, we can allow those tribulations to harden our hearts, leading to toxic leadership habits, or we can use those events to purify our hearts. And here's a quote that I love by Matthew chapter 5, verse 18. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Leadership is a journey, and we never truly master it. Do not allow the tribulations you go through to harden your heart. All right, team, it's time for our after action review. What are my final thoughts? But before we even get into that, again, I want you to understand that everything that I just went over is already free to you. You can go to McMillionLeadershipCoaching.com or find me on any social media link and look under the link tree and find our blog, Tells the Leadership blog that I produce every single month. So every month, I create a blog for you, and you can also find it in our show notes. So in our show notes under leadership resources, you click that link, it'll take you to our link tree, and it'll give you every single leadership resource free to you that you can use to become a more effective leader. So here are some of my final thoughts, and I'm not going to go through what I typically do with all of the different key points that I've talked about because there's 27 of them. And you're going to listen to me for 5 minutes, say the rule of this and the rule of that and the rule of this. So go back and listen to them all. What my goal here is to kind of give you some of the key takeaways and ideas to reflect on for some self-development. Leadership is a blend of the art and the science. And to be an effective leader, you must understand that specific rules help you achieve results. Not every rule will be applicable to your particular situation. However, use these 27 rules as a tool to be added to your toolkit. Remember, to be a leader means to inspire. Leaders must understand the tools at their disposal and how to effectively employ them to achieve the desired end state. From these 27 rules, here are the top three I believe are universal in any leadership position, regardless of the phase of leadership you find yourself on. The first is the rule of sowing. You must invest in your team and allow that investment to mature. The second is the rule of mirrors. Your organization will mirror the behavior and the values you demonstrate. Ensure you're modeling the behaviors you want to be emulated in your organization, in your family, or in your life. And then finally, the rule of candor. Organizations that can challenge assumptions from a healthy point of view will succeed. And that goes true for families as well. And remember, I see leadership as universal. It's not just in the boardroom. It is leading your family spiritually, mentally, physically. It is leading yourself. And you have to be able to challenge assumptions from a healthy point of view if you want to succeed. Use these 27 rules to amplify your leadership journey and become a more purposeful, accountable leader and inspire others. And remember this, we all have greatness inside, but it's up to us to forge those abilities and become the leader that our team, our family, and this world needs. And here is three powerful questions that you can reflect on. How can I ensure that I'm pursuing success in a way that aligns with integrity and sustainable effort rather than seeking shortcuts that could harm my reputation and character? Number two, as a leader, how can I make the best decision for the organization, even when they might be unpopular among specific individuals? And how can I maintain alignment with core values and prevent my ego from making those choices? And then number three, what steps can I take to cultivate a growth mindset and shift my focus from goals to continuous personal and professional growth? And then here's the final part to that question. How can I approach problems with an attitude that encourages abundancy and learning? Hey guys, do me a favor. So first, if you like what you've heard so far, it would mean the world to me if you share this podcast with anyone that is a leader of their family, a leader of a team or an organization, or is just starting out in a new career and has to learn to lead themselves. Everyone in my mind is a leader. And if you think my podcast can add value to them, make sure you share it with them. Number two, go give me a review on iTunes or Spotify or whatever platform you're listening. That would significantly help me and get my message out there, especially in the search engine. And that would mean the world. And then finally, if you like this podcast and you want to support, go to the leadership resources tab below and then click and become either a donator or a show supporter. And you can go through there and figure out how to do that. But as always, I'm your host, Josh McMillion, saying every day is a gift. Don't waste yours. I'll see you next time.